Hello, everyone. This is Mark Anthony with AI Edge Podcast, the place where we bring you the best of the best doctors, nurse practitioners, and people that are very focused and concerned about making sure that the body heals correctly. We hear so much information out there from so many people. And guess what? So many people out there, and doctors and physicians, have really great pieces of truth. And tonight, still afternoon over here. I'm all tonight, maybe because of the black background. Tonight, we're going to be speaking with Carol Wilcock. And the cool thing about Carol, she's an RN. She
Mhm.
is also a QBI. What does that mean? Well, also, it means a quantum biofeedback instructor. What's great about biofeedback is it heals the brain, rewires the brain, which I really like. You can find her at dynamichealthtechnologies.com. Again, dynamichealthtechnologies.com.
Yep.
So today we're going to be talking about hyperbaric chamber HBOT, hyperbaric chamber HBOT. Thank you so much, Carol, for being here.
You're welcome. Always a pleasure to be able to share information with folks who are looking for solutions. They're needing to heal. So that's what we're all about.
Well, I'm excited because this is something that I'd love to get more information on. And I hear a lot of talk about it, but then I don't hear enough talk about it. As I'm learning that there's so many modalities of how this helps the body heal and things like that. But before we get into HBOT, tell the viewers out there a little bit about yourself, how you got started, and where you're located and where people can find you and
Sure.
stuff. Thank you.
Yeah. Happy to do that. So I'm in Helena, Montana. We're the capital, and it's only 45,000 people, even though we're the capital. There's only 1 million people in all of Montana, just a little over. We do have more cows than we have people. It's true. And we like it that way. We have a big signs that say cows, not condos, and all of that.
Love it.
So it's definitely, we're kind of a renegade culture. Uh, You'd be surprised how many people are like, well, I have all this knowledge, I have all these things. Now we can work online, we can work remote. And they're like, I want to live in Montana. And honestly, the weather is awful a lot of the year. It's true. But
You
the,
notice how you say that so they don't get all happy about coming
yeah, I don't want you to move here. No, I'm kidding.
here.
So but we have amazing people, and it's really been eye-opening and really fun because Montana is one of those places where typically, and this is hope, well, it's influenced us some in the last few years, as but not as extreme as it has other places. Montana is a place where you can go to lunch or dinner with friends who have the exact opposite politic, religion, economic,
We're
whatever,
good.
whatever, and you go have a cup of coffee or have a cup of tea, something warm usually, and then have a discussion about it, and then you still leave friends. It's like, "That was really interesting. I never thought about it that way. I'll have to mold that around."
Not
And
like that
you're
in
okay,
California.
and you're okay. So I love that there's this, softness and this groundedness to the people, which is, one of the things that I love about Helena, Montana. So, of course, there's people, and we've had a lot of people move into state, and they think they need to fix us with their opinions, and we're like, "Yeah,
Oh,
that's not
my.
really how we do stuff. So, you should go back to wherever you."
They'll conform, trust me.
Yeah, I know.
There's enough of you guys out there because when you have niceness and maturity, it always kind of overrides eventually.
Yeah, we're like, "Yeah, we're gonna have to teach you. We don't do that here."
What you have to with Californians, you got to say, we have a different program here. Let me show you the program. Sit
Yeah.
down, have a cup of coffee. Would you like a piece of pie? That's how you get
Right,
people to listen. Sit down, have a cup of
right,
coffee.
right. My son was wearing a hat. Well, this is a funny story. He's wearing a hat one day, and he was in a store. It was in 2020, October 2020. It was very cold outside. He was in had a brand new baby, and so he's alarmed at how many diapers you go through. So he's at this store grabbing a pack of diapers, and it's like 10:30 at night, and there's one person working. Remember what October 2020 was like, right? So there's one person working, and there's this huge line. this huge line, and there's a lady from out of state, I won't say where, she's from out of state. She's clearly not capable of she doesn't have the tools to deal with this kind of weather because she was wearing many layers of clothes, and she's screaming at the clerk, which we don't do in Montana. She's screaming at the clerk because she can't figure out how to get her to take her state's welfare stamps to buy Montana food products. And we're like, "We're not participating in your state's welfare." And she was just furious, and she's barking at this clerk and holding up a dozen people in line. And finally, the clerk just said, "I'll go get the manager and see," and then we're like, "We're gonna have to open up a separate line to keep this lady from holding
Right.
up life."
Keep her happy.
And so my son, who looks a little bit like Jason Momoa,
Whoa. Okay.
he's big and he had long kind of curly hair and he's muscly and he's in crazy good shape and he's about 6 feet tall and he's wearing a ball cap, but he's wearing a ball cap and it says no vacancy on it. It's the state of Montana and then it
Yep.
says no vacancy. And this lady turns to him and she looks at him and she said, "Well, I'm from this other state. I'm from so and so, and I find that hat offensive."
Oh boy. Wrong
And he
spot.
said, "Well, ma'am, we all know where you're from because nobody in Montana would be so rude to hold up life for all these other people. And no one from Montana would ever treat somebody who came to work today at 10 o'clock at night. Nobody would ever treat them that way. We know where you are, and you, ma'am, are the reason why we wear this hat."
Did she
He
say
was
anything?
like, "Oh, god." So many people love to confront him, and I'm like, "Don't do it. It's gonna hurt. It's gonna be
Yeah,
uncomfortable."
especially the Momoa part. You lost me. I go, we're best friends.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
So
he's
let's
big.
yeah, let's get
Okay.
let's I mean, like, how did you start to get passionate about what you're doing now? Like, where did that start? I know you just didn't wake up one morning, you're 3 years old, I want to be a nurse.
I didn't wake up that way. My my family was, I have 6 brothers, 5 older brothers and a little brother, and my dad's a hospital administrator. 2 of my brothers are surgeons, and then,
Oh,
1 retired now, and we went to doctors' houses for parties or for whatever, but I can't tell you the name of my pediatrician. I don't ever remember meeting him because when we got sick, we used herbals, we used naturals, we stayed home, we rested, we had the chicken
wow.
noodle soup, we did the natural things. And that was and we ate home cooked meals and we grew a huge garden and we canned and we preserved and we did all of those things. And so I grew up not thinking about anything medical. I was on a stage all the time. I was dancing, I was singing, I played the violin, I played the piano. I was doing and I just realized I didn't wanna get wrapped into that industry. And some of the culture that goes with it didn't align for me. And
Right.
so, talking with my dad and ended up going into nursing. And mostly part of it, honestly, was because I wanted to be a great mom. You learn childhood development. You learn so many different things that help you to be a great mom. And I just thought, let's start there and then we'll move forward. So that was a great foundation. And then I worked at the hospital for 10 years as a float nurse. So I worked everywhere. I worked in ICU. I did advanced cardiac life support. I did, pediatrics and worked as charge nurse on, a lot of floors. And it was really, I loved my job and I loved being a float nurse because I got to solidify my knowledge on all the different units. It wasn't just
Wow.
narrow vision. So I worked on the psych unit, I worked in ICU. I loved them both. I loved them both. So, it was a great foundation, but about 4 or 5 years of working in the hospital, and I became associated and started learning more about nutrition and nutritional different companies and different products, and learned homeopathy, and just knowing that all of these things that were innate in my family's history were kind of natural for me. And as people were on more and more meds, less and less quality of life, I saw a few different incidences when I just went, there's got to be more. There's gotta be more that we can do, especially people with chronic issues. So I left the hospital and worked in a doctor's office for a little bit, which was really great because it taught me how to run a clinic. And so that was valuable information for where I am now. Didn't know that was where I was gonna be. Interviewed with a large insurance company, learned a lot about what they want and their perspective on
Nice.
healthcare. So I asked them my final question after a really grueling interview process, 4 hours. Like, Jiminy Christmas.
Wow. It's like you're working for the president.
For real. So I said, "Number 1, is this the way you treat your employees? Because I haven't had a bathroom break for 4 hours. I
Oh
haven't been offered a drink of water. Like, I came here at 8 AM and it's 12:15. My teeth are floating. I can barely think
my
straight. You
gosh.
guys are like, this is the way you treat your employees? Like, for real, this
What
is
did they
not
say?
okay." They're like, "Oh, we're so sorry." I'm like, "Seriously, you need to work on that." But my question, I says, is if I were your perfect employee of the year, what are the benchmarks that you're looking for in order for me to achieve that? How can I be the best possible employee for you? And they said, pay as little as possible. Pay as few claims as possible. Authorize as little as we possibly can to keep our output down. And I said, I am in the wrong place. I hope you have a good day. And I'm like, I just walked out. I was like,
Wow.
yeah.
Little as possible.
Yeah, my job in an insurance company is to pay out as little as possible. And I'm like, good to
That's
know.
sad.
Good to know. So a lot of people ask me, does insurance cover this? And I'm like, it's not about insurance. It's not about me. It's about them getting approval. And I'm not willing to go through the process because it's brutal, but I've done it before. So literally landed in my lap. My husband had bone spurs in his feet, and these are like the Tetons growing out of the bottoms of his feet. They're really brutal spikes of bone. And so we had done everything for 10 years: ultrasound, PT, inserts, orthotics, ice, NSAIDs, like you name it, muscle relax. Like we tried everything to get it so that his feet were comfortable all day long, and, he was crawling to the bathroom. This is when he was about 40. So he's crawling to the bathroom in the morning because it hurts so bad to put pressure down on his feet, and so he had a friend who said, "Well, I had trouble with my knees, and our friend Joe, and Joe's alive and well and doing better, and his health is much better, and my knees feel much better. You should try this." And so my husband says, "Well, what is it?" And he described it, quantum biofeedback, and I'm like, I have no idea. So he said, "Just try it. Just try it." And it finally got to the point where my husband was like, "I'm either gonna have to try this or I'm gonna have to find a new job," because his friend was his boss. So he's like, "I can't just put him off forever. Would you at least look at it long enough to make sure it won't hurt me?" And so I took a look at it, an honest look at it, and I went, "I don't understand how the magic equations are." I mean, they didn't explain this well for me at all. But I said, "I don't see where it can hurt you, and it's cheaper than getting a new job." So, right, it's better than starting a new career, so at least we can say we did it, and if it works, great, and
Right.
if it didn't, at
If
least
not,
we get to move past. So, he did, we bought a series of 10, and after 5 weeks, so he did once a week. After 5 weeks, I said, "By the way, how are your feet doing? Because 'Cause you've been doing this biofeedback thing," and he goes, "They're same, same." He said, "But you know what? I haven't had a stress headache." He would get these tension headaches. He has really strong muscles in the back of his
oh,
head, and he
that's
would
you.
get these tension headaches, and he would hurt every day, and he goes, "I haven't had a tension headache in weeks." I said, "Cool." And then he said, "You know what I ate yesterday? I ate popcorn." And I said, "No way." So his dad had esophageal spasms, and my husband had the same. If they ate anything dry, like everything was dripping with butter or salad dressing or gravy or something,
It's
it was
done.
just wet, and they drank tons of food with their meals, which isn't very healthy either. So he said, "No, I ate a bunch of popcorn. I didn't even think about it until later when I realized I didn't choke." Like, want to would just freeze and spasm, and then he'd have to wait for the muscle to relax before he could swallow, but you feel like there's this huge obstruction. It's very
Right.
uncomfortable. Your airway is still clear, but it's stuck in your esophagus.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that went away, and I said, "Well, in the world of side effects where I live, that's pretty amazing."
It is.
So I said, "Well, keep going." And then a few weeks later, after about the 8th session, he got up one morning and went to the bathroom and came back to bed, and I said, "How are your feet?" And it's like 5 o'clock in the morning. He's like, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "You just walked to the bathroom without expletives, without an ooch and ouch and wanna cry." And he said,
Whoa,
"My gosh." And he stood up and he did a little tap dance and he goes, "I have no pain. I have no pain." So
this is
his
amazing.
body reabsorbed, right? The guy had worked on the bones of his feet, and he goes, "I have no pain." And he hasn't had pain now for 25 years. So I'm like, "Well, you have my attention." That's pretty interesting because we had already tried everything else and we didn't change anything else. We didn't change his diet. We didn't change how much fluid he's eating,
This is
drinking,
a this has to help
anything.
with neuropathy then.
It helps with everything. So
Yeah, it helps with it.
it does, it does. So there's almost 1,000 programs. So there's meridian programs, there's spinal programs, there's toxin panels where we can see if it's a synthetic or a biological toxin. We can see
Yeah.
if it's trauma. We can see if it's stuck in your head. Great, it's stuck in your head. Let's work on your head. Let's work on the cell
Yes.
memory, the nerve memory, the muscle memory. Let's work on what is the emotions that are sticking these things in place. It's not an excuse to say you're crazy. No, we're all crazy. We all have stuff that we have experienced that gets stuck, right? Ask,
100%.
right? The biology of belief. Our body
Yeah.
keeps the score. It does keep the score. So let's settle the score. Let's change.
Yes.
So that was my first introduction, and then his friend said, Carol, you gotta do this." And I said, "No, I'm gonna go get my nurse practitioner because I don't know if I'm qualified to be a primary care practitioner, but I know I can do better than what I'm seeing." I mean, these guys there was some blatant I was just like,
Well,
"You're kidding. You really? You couldn't take a chest X-ray? You didn't run this lab?" Like, no. I'm like, "I can do better than this already," and I haven't even gone to school yet, so I was like, "No. I'm gonna do this." And he said, "Well, that's good, but this is great. And Carol, you're built for this." And he was right. But
uh,
yeah, it wasn't until the second day of training. It just wouldn't go away, wouldn't let me sleep, right? Tried to find questions, tried to call clinics and find out more information. They thought I was like investigator from, the medical association or something. Oh gosh, and I couldn't really get a lot of clear answers, and I just thought, "Well, I'm just gonna bite the bullet," and I bought the equipment and went to training, and the second day of training, I just got this huge wave of tingles up my spine, and I thought, "You are in the right place, and you are doing the right thing." And I was like,
whoa.
"I'm in the right place." So then it was 4 years of learning all of the it was now it's much faster learning curve, but a lot of unlearning the things that I had learned and relearning a whole bunch of new things, and then being able to really discern which programs evoked the best response. So then I developed a academy called the Quantum Results Institute, which trains other people how to be great quantum biofeedback practitioners. So that's where
How
I'm
long have
at
you been
now.
doing
And in
that
the
school?
in the process, I did homeopathy certification, I did massage therapy certification,
Wow.
I did EECP certification, hyperbaric, like you just add it on.
Wow.
It's all
Yeah.
good.
Wow. I mean, I got a lot of wows here because you're just eating it all up.
Yeah.
And
I'm just
these are powerful modalities to help people heal. Before we move forward,
yeah,
the things that Carol is speaking on, and if you're listening to this right now, you should give her a call because when I meet doctors, nurse practitioners, they all have their own little superpower, whether it be
yeah.
neuropathy, whether it be stem cell. I don't downgrade anything because
Mhm.
that's their superpower.
Everybody has a niche.
They
Everybody
all
has
have
a
their
niche.
niche, but the niches that Carol's speaking on, like EECP, these are very powerful healing sources to heal your body that a lot of people do not talk about, like EECP. When I met you talking
Mhm.
about it, I like lit up like a firecracker because I'm talking with this one lady. She's funny thing is she's an RN also.
Yep, and she's
And
new.
yes, and she does the whole, wellness. And you guys, you both are using a lot of the modalities. And I'm gonna jump on a limb. There are a lot of doctors that I do talk with that maybe have one or two modalities that are maybe for certain things, but the type of equipment that Carol and this other lady, I'll call her Dolly because she loves, Dolly Parton, and that they use are working. You struggle with neuropathy, you want to see Carol. You struggle. Look what her husband was struggling with. She went to the point where she's like, I'm going to learn everything that I can learn. And good old Lord allowed her to remember everything to the T. I could tell you've got one of those memories, especially when you're excited. You're going to
Oh,
take
yeah.
that and grab it and it's yours.
Yeah, it's locked
And
in.
let's go deeper. So where I'm going with this, call Carol. Why stay in pain?
Well,
And it,
exactly. That's the whole point. And what's fun about using technologies, number one, it's not just me. You don't have to call Carol. There's a lot of people that work here because I can teach them to use a
right,
technology. If I'm a one person knowledge base and I have a practice of some kind, it's just me. Right? It's just me, but I can only see so many people in a day. But I can teach. I can teach other people and then because I can't see all the people that need these modalities. So our qualification is that it has to be class 2 medical device, class 1 or 2, so non-invasive. There's no needles in my clinic, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, would you do IV therapy? You should add prolozone therapy. You should add, PRP injections. You should add this to my clinic." And I said, "I'm staying non-invasive. I'm staying with class 2 medical devices, which is the equivalent of a tongue depressor, which
wow,
can only hurt you if you use it inappropriately, right?" So our hyperbaric, our EECP, these are class 2 medical devices. They're super, super safe. So my first do no harm. First do no harm. And that's the part of medicine that so many people have forgotten.
you're right.
First, don't hurt them. And if you don't know what you're doing and you just throw a drug at it,
Okay.
you're hurting them. You're hurting them. So, first, do no harm. Class 2 medical devices. The other thing is that it's usually not just one thing, right? If you have angina, chest pain, so it might be that your arteries are clogged, right? But why are your arteries clogged? It's not just extra cholesterol. It's not. That's not the problem. It's the sugar that's the problem. It's the metabolic processes that are the problem. We'll get into that with hyperbaric. But it's like, it's not just one thing. It's not just a toxin. It might be a big exposure to a toxin. So I had a client who was in stage 4 liver failure and they told the VA, he's a veteran. The VA told him he's an alcoholic. You've ruined your liver and you have weeks to months to live, but you're not going to make it till Christmas. So don't buy any presents. Get your affairs in order. And he was referred here by another veteran and we went to work on him and it wasn't alcohol, it was halogens. He was a fireman, and he had done for I forget how many times he had gone to the sandbox over to the Middle East and worked on these burn pits. That's what he did full time was breathe that toxic smoke. And that's what killed his liver. So we worked with homeopathy, we worked with herbals, we worked with the biofeedback to get the toxins out of his
All
system.
right.
He did hyperbaric. He bought his own hyperbaric later because he moved to
Wait,
another city and he's like, I don't want to be without it. He is completely healthy, happy, just amazing. He's thriving. He went back to school. He worked 2 jobs, handling life. He moved so that he could be closer to his family, his mom and help her in her situation, and he's a thriving member of the community now. And they
that's
were
what.
like, "You just drank yourself into oblivion. You should feel guilty and feel bad for the rest of your little tiny life. Way to go, you blew it." And I'm like, "You didn't blow it." He goes, "I don't
No.
think I drank that much." And I said, "Well, everybody's sensitivity is different,
Yeah.
but his was not." And so it's never just one thing. Even in that case, the halogens, the alcohol didn't help. So he had been dry for probably 3 or 4 months before he came to see us. But he's like, "I don't even have alcohol in my system, but my liver is still crashing." And I'm like, "It's not alcohol." Yeah. So, it's always interesting to work with multiple modalities and the way that we combine them unique to each person because it's never just one thing, which means there's usually more than one solution. We also refer out a ton. Like if you need physical therapy or a chiropractic adjustment, or if you need a specialist for this, or if you need IV therapy,
Right.
I'm like, I'm going to send you to go, just go get some hydration on board. Just go get an, just fluid would be fantastic.
I know.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's it's good old I call it Doctor Google, and Doctor social media. Everyone's a doctor and everybody knows, but that's another
And it's
story. So
hard.
let's
We can also
yeah.
test and see what works best for you. So we don't make those references. We can see your whole nutrition panel. We can
Oh
see all
wow.
of that. I can see where there's stress, right? Where it's an imbalance. I can't see your lab values because that's not what we do, right?
Right.
Because I don't poke holes. I don't poke holes.
Okay. I like that. So let's talk about a little deeper, maybe like hyperbaric chamber. What is it? I mean, a lot of people don't, they hear that word, it's thrown around. Are they really in a chamber? Like, is it like an egg or what is it? Is it
There's
sealed and I can hear you knocking, but you can't come in? Like, what kind of,
Right. Well, that's true. Yes. So I think part of it is that we've heard about it because we think that it's elite athletes like Olympians or professional athletes. The football players will pack them around, or a basketball player or something like that. The professional athletes are using them more and more all the time. And so they have portable ones that'll fold up into a pretty heavy duffel bag, but they'll haul it up to their hotel room and do hyperbaric, in the evening before they get ready for the next game, or to help recovery, or to even prep. So, like Michael Phelps, he ran all of
yeah.
the gold medals in one day. Well, he was jumping in a hyperbaric chamber in between those. So his muscles had no lactic acid buildup.
Wow.
He could go and do the next event and then do the chamber and go to the next event. And that's how he did that in one day when you can expand that much energy without the lactic acid buildup and repercussions that go with that. So that's one group of people that we're like, "Oh, but we're not them. I can't afford my own hyperbaric chamber." And then you have the wound healing clinics, which are usually fixed chambers. They're $100,000 plus, right? They're very, very expensive. Same, more in the price line of PEMF or EECP, they're pricey. So people think, "Oh, I have to have a doctor's prescription," which is true, and then they will only use it for wound healing. Or sometimes you'll have a hospital that has a person who's exposed to carbon dioxide poisoning, and they'll use it for that. So if you don't have carbon dioxide poisoning or osteonecrosis or a wound that isn't healing, then you don't get to use hyperbaric oxygen.
Okay.
But now we have this whole industry of mild chambers. These are FDA approved for home use. You can have them in your home. These are the same density, the same pressure as what the football players and everybody are using. So,
Wow.
but they're bigger because theirs are relatively small, because they're sticking them in a duffel bag and hauling them up to their hotel room. So ours, we have two different kinds, and there's a lot of different kinds. There's ones that you can sit in like a lounge chair. We have a horizontal one that's like a capsule. So if you blew up your CoQ10, you know, 10,000 times, and it's a capsule. And it has windows on it so you can see out and we can see in and we can still hear you. That's all fine. And then we have a vertical chamber as well. So for a lot of people, it's very difficult to climb into a horizontal chamber with the zipper. And so you climb down in, and then to get back out is kind of a trick. It's a padded floor, and so it's unstable, right? It feels unstable and it's wonky. It's hard to get out of there. So a lot of people, especially the elderly, when they're in their 80s and 90s, and they can lift their foot about 7 inches, and
Right.
then they can get into the vertical chamber and just sit in a chair, which is also easy to get out of and step out, and it's great. So, and we can put two chairs in there because it's a 5-foot base and it's about
Mhm.
8 feet high. So it's
Oh,
big. You can
wow.
stand up and stretch and do yoga in there, or I can fit 2 chairs and we can have a mom and a kid in there or dad and a kid. So husband, wife, we've done that quite a few times. So there's
Oh,
different
wow.
types of chambers. The mild chambers are actually I bought them on purpose. I've bought equipment that was as expensive as the fixed chambers. But this was purposefully chosen because it's better for neuroplasticity. It's better for your nerves. So this is the part that the FDA has not approved hyperbaric for nerves. Because if they approve it, like for our vets with traumatic brain injury, if they approve it, then Medicare and Medicaid have to cover the expense.
I
Well,
see.
up at the hospital, right, that's gonna be $800 to $1,000 per hour. And mine is $100 for 90 minutes. Right now it's on sale. We do a sale every summer for kids and for athletes and people who actually have a little bit of time in the summertime. So we run a special right now, which is the same price we charge our veterans, and that's only 65, and you can choose how long you wanna stay, 60, 90 minutes, which is insane,
Wow.
insanely cheap.
Insane.
It's crazy. So and I tell people it's apples and oranges. It's not the same as a fixed chamber, and there's people like, "Well, the higher pressure is better." I'm like, "Well, if you have radionecrosis, if you have radiation damage and it's caused dead tissue and you have gangrene setting in, then I would really love for you to go to that chamber."
Right.
Go to the hospital, go to the wound clinic, that's where you belong. If you have carbon dioxide poisoning, I really don't want you here. I would love for you to go up there. But if you have headaches from a whiplash or a concussion or a motor vehicle accident that you didn't really think was all that bad, but you haven't been the same since, or a stroke. We had a guy that had a stroke, and his naturopath who was working just down the street from us, and he knew me, and he sent his client over 4 days after the stroke. He was completely hemiplegic, one side of his body completely flaccid, couldn't move it at all, and he came in, and we got him in the chambers, and he did 8. So he came in every single day, we left him in for 90 minutes, and after 8 days, he was neurologically completely normal. He didn't have a stroke anymore. He couldn't move half of his body, and he bought a package of 10, and I told him to expect because they told us at training 30. Expect 30. If they're not willing to do 30, don't waste your time on it. And I'm like, "Man, that's a lot." Like, you really need that. It just doesn't feel like that's
So you don't do the 30 or
I have clients who have done I had one physician who did 120 in a row because he wanted to finish his career on top of his game. He's like, "I don't wanna be the physician that people say, 'I wish he would have retired a couple years ago.'" He had a couple years left, and he goes, "I just want to finish my career absolutely perfect memory on top of my game." And so he came in every single day all summer long and came in before work, and he did 120, and he said at the end of 2 months, just 60, at the end of 2 months, he said, I feel like a 17-year-old brain." He goes, "I feel amazing. I could learn anything right now. I can remember everything right now." Totally regenerated his brain. And he
so
did
this is good for like people with brain fog.
yeah, it's good for, like, long COVID. It's huge, so good. We're for people dealing with long COVID. So but anything neurological, so that's the MS, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia, all of your brain injuries, your concussions, autism. We even had one lady, she had other issues, but it helped immensely with schizophrenia. She's like, "My brain is clear. I can think clearly." So a lot of people think that mental illness has to do with a personality disorder. Well, that might be true. I'm not dismissing that. And our minds are a complicated thing, but it's a lot easier to have a healthy mind if you have a brain that works. When you don't have the brain fog, you don't have the memory loss, you don't have anxiety, you don't have those kind of traumas.
Wow. What would you say are like some of the big things that you've seen just, over at your clinic on people getting healed and you're just like, wow, that was amazing. Where you like this could be a hard one. Sometimes you you say it in the back of your head, like,
This could be tough.
how about this one? But,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden he does like a 360 or she does a 360.
I actually, when you say that, it brings to mind this one particular lady. For a while, it's Medicaid waiver referral. So Medicaid pays for medical expenses, right?
Mm.
But Medicaid waiver is a program that was designed to help people stay in their home because it's so much less expensive to keep them comfortable in their home than it is to put them in an institution full-time nursing care, which they don't necessarily need. So you have this huge population that might need a wheelchair ramp or someone to check on them on a really regular basis. So they had a whole category of pain and symptom management. So if we can keep them out of ER, that's less expense for the taxpayers, and that's what the program was designed to do. And so that's where we had this referral. She had a traumatic brain injury, and then she kept having traumatic brain injuries. So she's in her 30s. She was in a horrible motor vehicle accident, and then she lost her sense of balance, and she kept falling and hitting her head. So now she was up to 5 TBIs, which is a lot. And so she was married, they didn't have children. But she was super anxious, and she would get so anxious that she was sometimes suicidal, and so her husband would have to leave work and come home and care for her and calm her down, and she didn't respond very well to medications. A lot of them made it worse. Her brain didn't chemically react normally. And so her husband had a hard time keeping jobs. They were having a hard time finding apartments to even stay in because he kept having to move to different job positions. He had a degree in art, master's degree, and he's an amazing artist. But here he is trying to be a dog groomer for somebody because that was what he could do, knowing that he was just going to have to run home and care for her all these different times. So it was a struggle. So she came in, we started doing biofeedback, and then we started doing a lot of hyperbaric and primarily hyperbaric. And so she came in the first time she was in a wheelchair, pushed her in. She was so unstable that she couldn't keep her balance well enough to walk from the parking lot into the office. She could pivot, she could stand and turn, like get up and use the bathroom, but so she was weight bearing, but she was not mobile without especially a lot of anxiety because she thought she might fall.
Mm.
So she comes in and she does her hyperbarics, and so she came in, I think, 3 days a week. After a couple months, she's in a walker. Month later, she's using a cane. Now she's walking just with a cane to make sure she's okay. And we kept doing back and forth hyperbaric, working on her nutrition, working on what her brain needed in order to heal, getting alignment right, making sure her vertebrae and her axis and all of this whiplash, right. There's a lot of structural damage and you need some structural support there as well. And then about 5 months, 6 months after we started working on her, she just walked in a dress with her makeup done and her hair done. And I said, "My, who are you?" And she said, "Hi, her name was not Sally, but I'm going to use Sally as my generic female name." She
Mhm.
goes, "Hi, I'm Sally." And I said, "Man, is it nice to meet you." She says, "I feel like me. I remember me. I remember what it feels like to be me." So he got a job at the University of Montana in Missoula in the art department using his degree. She works part-time and they're thriving. They're fine. They're great. I mean, it's just a perfect story. In 6 months, their life was transformed, and that total bill, gosh, the total bill was around 5,000.
Well, to get your life back.
Did we get your life back in the course of that many months? I mean, it was nothing compared to what I mean, that would be that would be 5 times, right? There's just
No
no
needles.
comparison. There's no comparison. So, yeah, there's been so many times where the hyperbaric, it gave her stem cells. So let's talk about maybe how it
Yeah.
works. You wanna talk about that?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. So hyperbaric works by it's a hyper pressure. right? Baric is barometric, like the barometric pressure, the weather changes, the pressures change, and now that creates the up currents and down and the winds and the cold and the heat, right? So hyperbaric oxygen therapy or HBOT is oxygen under pressure. So it's literally ours is vinyl. They're vinyl soft-sided chambers. They both have zippers and lots of layers of flaps that make it sealed. And so they're sealed. You can get out pretty fast. We can get you out pretty darn fast. You need to use a restroom. It happens. So and then when you add the oxygen, it creates this synergistic effect. So even just the pressure without oxygen, because we've done that. I'm trying to think of a good example. You know, sometimes when you get hurt, they'll be like, it's not just ice, but you'll push against it, the counter pressure,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
Counter pressure sometimes feels really good. In the hyperbaric, that counter pressure is 4 pounds per square inch, which is like a hug. I mean, it feels like a hug in every cell of your body. It just feels comfortable. It feels secure. It feels like this
Does
little
your breathing
pressure.
change? Does
Nope,
anything change? You don't get
nope,
kind of like,
mm-mm, nope. So we add we don't add liquid nitrogen because liquid oxygen because it's highly flammable and very dangerous. So we don't do that. We add from a air compressor or a well, we have the air compressor and then we have an O2 concentrator. And so we're free flowing oxygen in. When you do that, when you put oxygen under pressure, it becomes a liquid. So an example, you've seen like a Sprite bottle, right? And when you or a sparkling water, right? You release the pressure, now you can see the bubbles, right? You can see the gas. When that gas is under pressure, you can't see the bubbles because it's under pressure. It's a liquid. And so when you have lost blood supply to your brain, to anywhere in your body, to your feet, diabetic ulcers, right? You can't get a blood supply there, but your body is full of water, which means now we can get oxygen everywhere there's fluid. And that's how we're able to get your cells need oxygen in order to function at all. They have to have energy, they have to have oxygen. So if we can saturate the fluids of your body with oxygen, then they can heal. It gives them energy, instant energy straight to the mitochondria. Just works on a
wow.
cellular level. So it increases your stem cell production by 800%. So you don't have to do shots. You don't have to do stem cell shots. Go do hyperbaric.
What's so important about the stem cells being activated?
So the stem cells are your that's your healing tool. That's your anti-aging tool. That's your regeneration tool. So like if you have a bone that breaks, a bone is actually really interesting because a bone does not heal, it doesn't scar, it actually regenerates, it regrows. It's different than if you cut your skin, it'll
I
heal
just
up.
thought it just makes it weaker.
Right, but there's a scar, right? And
Hmm.
that it doesn't actually create completely healed skin unless you heal it from the inside out. But a lot of times it'll leave a scar. Bone, when it heals, it's actually completely healed. So stem cells actually come from your bone marrow, right? There's several places that have stem cells, but your body will produce stem cells, but when your body is highly saturated with oxygen, it has more energy. And all those cells functioning at a higher level. And so that's why we get that that part of it. And that's why you heal so much faster. That's why athletes recover and can go back out and swim a marathon, right? And come back, right? They can do these incredible things. They can take a beating to their brain. So with their helmets, even though the helmets hit at a pretty slow mile per hour, but the brain is moving at the rate they're running. So even though you don't feel it clash on the outside because of the helmet, it's actually very dangerous because on the inside, your brain is sloshing back and forth. And that's the risk, right, with those types of injuries. And it's the repeat injury that makes it particularly harmful. So the stem cells are the tool to regenerate, to restore.
So when you say regenerate, so stem cells in your body can be dormant.
Well, you would produce less. You produce less at different times. I don't know. Yeah, yeah. And
Because
then
if they're
you
dormant,
basically
then
activate
be
them.
activated, so it's not like you're so it's once those stem cells, we'll just say activate, that's when it starts to bring the inflammation down, and
Mhm,
that's what
mhm.
this the HBOT does.
Yeah, it's a natural, and that's part of the compression, the hyper pressure, the pressure knocks down inflammation, like, in minutes. I mean, it just knocks
So
down
this
the
is something you can
inflammation.
start to feel right away?
Oh, yeah. It just depends on how inflamed you are. So, I had a kid that came in with a mom, she called that morning. He's 1, he's learning to walk. He's a crazy kid, and he's running, and he tripped and stumbled, but he hit the corner of the door jamb just square
Oh,
in the
wow.
middle of his head, and it just bulged really, really fast. And she was like, "He's neurologically, he looks fine." And so she stopped by, and I was like, "If he has neurological symptoms, you're going to ER." Right? So that's one of the advantages of having my background is I know when it's kinda safe for them to be here, and I know when to kick them out. So, don't you are not dying at my
Right.
clinic. No. It's not what we do. So, but she was about nap time, and he was okay, but have a pretty big egg on his head, and it was impressive. So, they got in the chamber. She just nursed him. It was nap time anyway. They both fell asleep. We got him out an hour and a half later, and he bounced out of there, and his head was normal. He had no bump, and he never bruised. He never he never nothing. It was like it never even happened. Just of course, kids have tons of stem cell anyway, but it was really interesting to watch that anti-inflammatory component because he never even had to go through that difficult, painful process. He never I mean, we checked him neurologically before and after. He was fine that way, but it was amazing to physically see this egg on his head and then just gone.
Very interesting. So what about somebody with, like, glaucoma? Somebody that has,
Hmm.
I mean, it has this I mean, I don't know, I'm just wondering if there's any experience on that because if it does, we'll just say you get more cells. There's a lot of
Yeah.
cells that are within surrounding of the eye. I don't know if you've met with anybody like that
There's,
or
we've had people that had a lot of different eye problems, and the hyperbaric helped. We had one lady that had I'm trying to remember what her official diagnosis was, and I think she did 30, and she's like, "I don't think it's helping," and she kinda quit, but I was like, "No, we promised it would be at least 30 because this has been going on for a long" I'm like, "You've had it for 20 years. It's unreasonable that it's gonna
but eyes are the
worse."
hardest. That's
Yeah,
my
eyes are rough. We have some pretty cool programming in the quantum biofeedback for eyes, and it just depends on what the problem is. But I have one guy that had diabetic ulcers on his legs, and he had a horrible mold exposure on top of it. And the hyperbaric is
right.
amazing. It's just like pouring peroxide on mold; it just kills it. And when you have a bad mold exposure, it's in your body, and then the hard part is that then your body becomes allergic to it because it's overexposed. So you have an infection, which is one part of your immune system, and now you've flipped the switch, and now you're allergic to what you're infected with. It's really tough. So he had this mold exposure and was in the chamber, and he had a really bad headache about 5, 6 times in, and he was like, "What is going on?" And then he's like, "It's like a eye headache." And so he took off his glasses and went, "I can see," because it changed his eyes, changed his vision. It does because your eyes are soft and it puts pressure on them. So,
That
like, if
makes a lot of
somebody
sense.
has retinopathy or something like that, there's times that the eyes would actually be a reason not to do it. In his case, it was interesting because it does temporarily change your vision sometimes and sometimes permanently. So, but it's always an improvement. So he was like, "Oh, I just have to take off my glasses now my head doesn't hurt anymore."
Oh, wow. So how about, like, with somebody with, as you know, this is a real big one, really bad, say, neuropathy. They're just in a lot of pain a lot, but they're surviving because they're taking all the medications and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Yeah, neuropathy is a big one, and it all comes down also to why. why is it there? Is it a vascular problem? Because you might have better luck with EECP. We
Oh,
combine the
yes.
2, right? So if you've lost circulation to your feet, which happens with diabetics, then EECP combined with hyperbaric is actually gonna be really, really effective. Sometimes people have neuropathy, it's a side effect of a lot of different chemotherapy agents. So if they add magnesium with their chemo, there's a lot of clinics that do that so that you don't get neuropathy. But there's a whole bunch that are still, that's been 20 years. It's like, oh no, it's only some people, not very many people get neuropathy. And I'm like, why would you risk it?
Yeah.
Why would you risk it? Why, if it's magnesium, right? You might have an extra bowel movement a
Magnesium's
day.
great.
It's okay. It's okay. So anyway, if it's chemo related, then we'd work more in the biofeedback and nutrition to help clear that out of their system so that they can recover that way. So it's a chemical damage. If it's been chemically damaged, then the therapy is a little bit different. Sometimes we do the red light therapy,
Love it.
the on the feet. That takes time though. Be prepared. You gotta do it every day. You need to do it for a while, right? And hyperbaric, same, it's not just one thing. It is like if you're prepping for a marathon, right? And you wanna do hyperbaric the morning before you or the night before you go run so that you have lots of oxygen to burn up before you get lactic acid buildup. Or if you just ran a marathon, and then you wanna come to recover faster.
Or
So
if you're gonna go in a pickleball tournament and you want a little bit
right,
more energy,
right. So I I was working with a personal trainer. She's amazing. And I thought it's going to be interesting to see how I do with her with the tools that I have. And so I usually had a training session with her on Monday, and then I would get in the chamber on Tuesday. And then I had another training session with her on Wednesday. So then I'd get in the chamber on Thursday. So I thought I'll use it to recover faster. So I'm not so afraid to get sore because I have to work. I need to be here and I need to be able to be comfortable enough to lift up a pen without wanting to cry. And so I missed my Tuesday and I was really sore. She really pushed me on Monday. I was really sore on Tuesday, but I didn't have time to get in the chamber. And I thought I'm not going to go Wednesday and be more sore and add more injury to my already struggling body,
right?
right? Like it's so sore. So I got up on Wednesday morning and came in early and got into the chamber, and then I went and worked out. And she pushed me so hard, and I had no pain. Had no recovery time at all. None. I felt amazing. I put a grandkid on my shoulders and hiked up Mount Helena that afternoon. I was fine that evening. It was fine. I had no and I thought, "We'll see how tomorrow is." Thursday was fine. So I
When you
thought,
worked
"Well,
out,
this."
you didn't have the pain.
Right. I went to the workout, she kicked my butt. I was plank walking up and down this gym for felt like forever, and I'm like,
Yeah, I knew you
"Arms are."
used the HBOT, that's why.
Mhm,
Mm.
and so she's pushing me, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh." I'm like, "My arms are purple." Like, "Whitney, make it stop." And she's like, "No, you've got this. You can do it." And I just kept going, and I was like, "This is not okay. It's not a normal color. It's not okay."
Oh my
She's like
god.
she's like, "It's okay. You're fine." I'm like, "I don't believe you. That's my clinical opinion, by the way. I'm not okay." But it was amazing because I went and showered, ate breakfast, came to work, spent my day, played with my family, put a grandkid
Wow.
on my shoulders, went hiking. It's fine.
You know, for somebody like myself, a layman's person, what you described, a lot of the stuff you described, it almost sounds because have been talking about doing this a long time, but I'm gonna do it for sure in August, is testosterone. And I know that's totally different, but I'm saying
Mhm.
the symptoms that you're speaking of are the symptoms that I hear about: energy, brain fog, healing faster.
Well, and
I,
a lot of our endocrine system is our command center, really. I mean, we have our brain, a central nervous system that allows us to motor sensory interact with our environment appropriately, right? But our endocrine system is your vitality. That's your battery pack. That if you can be a beautiful, beautiful Ferrari, but if you've got a dead battery, you're not going anywhere, and that's hormones. That's adrenals, that's testosterone, that's progesterone, that's all those things. And what I look for, it makes me I'll say it makes me a little nervous when people start doing a lot of hormone replacement therapy. They do the TRT, they do the progesterone, they do the creams, they do the estrogen, and it makes me a little nervous because it disrupts homeostasis, it disrupts balance. So for you to be the best possible version of yourself, having your cells function at the highest possible level is much more achievable with hyperbaric or with sunshine and water and grounding and
The simple
avoiding
stuff.
toxins. Right. And I would love for there to, there is that magic shot out there, the peptides. There's all the
Right.
rave on the peptides, right? And I'm like, well, they're hormones. We have peptides. I have all the peptides in my biofeedback device. It's fine. We we can measure and see, but those are the naturally occurring peptides, not these really, really high combinations. And I know they make people feel amazing. But what I've seen over the long term with people doing hormones is first do no harm, right? So there's a risk, the risk of overdoing it. So, and I don't think that we know that our blood values are not accurate. If you go to anybody who really is an expert in hormones, they should be testing urine and saliva, way more accurate than testing blood. So
I
we're
agree with
we're
you 1,000.
engaging all of our information. We just don't know enough, honestly. And I've taught anatomy, physiology. I taught assessment at the nursing college. We don't know enough to tinker with that system. You wanna tinker with muscles and overbuild one muscle and see if it weakens the other one, fine. Overbuild your quads and see what happens to your it's fine. There's a place where we have a measure of flexibility. But when people start tinkering with the endocrine system, it just makes me really, really nervous because there's the potential it's so intertwined with who we are and with our whole functioning and our whole vitality that I just get really, yeah,
I
nervous.
feel there's a I feel like there's a lot of natural stuff that we're not utilizing that will activate the nervous system, and not just the nervous system, but any type of system that
Mhm.
is supposed to be functioning correctly. The problem is we're looking for quick fixes like the In-N-Out burger, the McDonald's, quick,
Or
and
the shot,
or the
right?
shot, the
Or the
shot.
peptide shots. "Oh, I
I
just
mean,
wanna I
that's
wanna
another
lose weight and I wanna feel
Yeah, I'm
amazing."
gonna do
So
the
I'm
GLP 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, you guys don't even know what you're putting in your body. Hasn't been around long enough for us to even. Anyways, that's a whole nother podcast.
It's a
But
whole 'nother
the
podcast. It's
reason,
a whole
so
'nother thing.
I've been researching testosterone
Yeah.
for a long time,
Mhm.
and I turned 50 in August. My battery's slowing down a little bit. I don't like it, but I still have a lot of energy. The only reason why I don't do it is because I know when there's a positive, there's always a negative, especially when you're injecting a needle or something like
There's
that,
a risk, and
you know?
there's cleanliness, and there's manufacturer integrity that's a risk. Mhm. I'm pretty nervous on a lot of different injectables and things like that. So, but that comes from my background of gardening and working out in the sun and drinking good water and playing out in the hills and hiking and, yeah. And knowing where your food sources come from. It's just that longevity piece is what we're looking for, but it's really within us, right? Your DNA, all of those things. And I hear people all the time say, "Well, it's because I turned 50 or it's because I turned 60 or ever since I turned 70, this has been a problem." It's because and my doctor says it's because of age. And I said, "Well, my mom passed when she was 93. She didn't have any of those problems. So how is it possible that it's age?" Right? I'm like, "It's not age. Diseases cause aging. Aging does not cause disease."
Well, half the battle's up here. Number
90%
one,
of the battle's
what
up
are you
there.
saying to yourself? When I hear people, I'm just getting old, I go, Wait a minute. Let's
Bull
just
crap.
stop right there. I always
Yeah.
use this term. This is just the way my brain thinks. Pretty interesting brain, I tell you. not trying to get religious here, but I loved in the Bible, Adam and Eve, they sinned, and all of a sudden they're trying to cover themselves, and number
Who
one,
told
who
yeah, who
told
told
you?
you?
So I go back to that. Who told you that's how old you are?
Yep.
Because now what you're doing is, oh, I'm 60. Oh, now you got
Uh,
the hunchback and you got the little,
yeah.
but
Yeah, now
you
I need
have
a hip
something that you don't
replacement.
even have that you're creating. Let's talk about, are you a quick to forgive person? Because if you're holding anger in your heart towards people, that
Mhm.
goes to the inside and it comes out. And
Yep.
ailments, stress. What are you holding on to? And people don't
Mhm.
realize that's 90%. That's my opinion, not a
I
professional.
agree. Completely agree.
I think, okay, before we even move forward and get you on anything, an HBOT, a BBOT, a robot, let's look at, do you have stinking thinking?
Mhm.
I mean,
Mhm.
that's huge because once we
Yeah.
get that out of the way, the healing will be a lot smoother instead of bumpy. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
It's it
I'll be straight with you. Do you know why I haven't gotten the shot? I'll be straight. I haven't gotten it. Number one, I don't want to lose my hair. Okay. For my age, a man who's 50 years old normally doesn't have a whole head of lettuce. Okay. I'm very blessed. I'm thankful. I don't want to. And all these people that I always see, they're all ripped up and they got all this muscle mass. I hate to say it, but most of, like, 95% of don't have hair. And then when I talk to the doctors, they're like, "Oh no, no, if it's not gonna, you're not gonna lose hair." I'm like, I don't believe that.
uh, my husband's been bald since he was in his 20s, and he has a coffee mug that says, "Bald men don't waste their hormones growing hair."
That's
Because he's never
awesome.
I mean, he didn't have hair till he was 4. He was really bald
Till it
until he
was
was old, and it was blonde. He was a towhead, and then he didn't have and it was gone by the time he was 24. I never met him when he had very much hair. So, yeah, hair is a different that's a whole different genetic thing, and there is hormones that are related to that. Excessive adrenaline, excessive stress, high cortisol levels, you're gonna lose hair. So people are like, "Why am I losing hair? This is the most stressful time of my life, and I don't need that too." And I'm like, "That's why you're losing hair. It's cortisol. You're gonna lose hair." Yeah.
100%. It's
So
funny. We can go into all these modalities, but You know, I wonder, I'm gonna just throw this out there. Does HBOT, does that hyperbaric chamber maybe help also with just the head to breathe better? Because sometimes I know closed pores inside they get
oh,
clogged up just like anything.
yeah, so it's I mean, it's wellness. It's running every so let's go to cells. Let's take a science lesson in cells. So you have your ATP, which is an
Mhm.
energy component of your cells. Every cell has mitochondria, and
Mm,
these little engines, these little powerhouses, and they use either calories that we get from food or burning your own body's calories, right? It'll catabolize its own tissue. So people with anorexia, right, it'll burn up the adipose and then the brown fat, and then it'll start skeletal muscle and then finally smooth muscle. And then that's how they die from anorexia, is that finally there's nothing else to eat. There's
wow.
nothing else to do. So you have these mitochondria that need fuel, right? And that generate fuel. So they use calories or they use oxygen. And that's how they generate cell function. If you don't have good cell function, you're not gonna function anywhere. You're gonna lose hair, you're gonna get fat, you're gonna
Right.
have all kinds of different
It's
problems
all
if
about the
you're
cell function, you're
yeah,
saying.
it's all about cellular function. If you're totally the more dysfunctional your mitochondria are, the more that they are going to be using calories. And that's when we crave sugar. That's when we overeat, right? Because we want energy. It's also why when you overeat, man, you're so tired, right? It's like, oh man, I need a nap. With the Thanksgiving dinner, right? That afternoon, man, I need a nap because it takes a lot of energy to even break that down. And your cells are functioning at this lower level.
Right.
Well, versus somebody who's going to be exercising or going into HBOT. If you've had a collapsed lung, if you've recently had chemo, you shouldn't be getting in the chamber because it amplifies the toxicity.
That makes sense.
Have
One more
if
good
you have
question for you, but
fluid. If you have fluid in your ears, then you shouldn't be in the chamber because when you put pressure on it, even if it's mild, you can blow it
Really?
in. Yes. So there's some screening that should
Oh,
happen before you get into a chamber. If you've ever had a lung biopsy, collapsed lung, pneumothorax, tension
cancer?
pneumothorax, it depends on the cancer. That's another whole thing. So, but when you're on a cellular level, once you are functioning, burning oxygen, now those cells are functioning at a whole new level. And that includes the follicles of your hair and your heart
Bingo.
and your lungs and your adrenals and your stomach. And it's anti inflammatory on your colitis, right? On your arthritis. It's going to be anti-inflammatory. And all of those cells are the healthy cells are going to regenerate so much faster. Now, most
Wow.
cancers, it's a good question. Around the world, there's a lot of cancer centers that use hyperbaric as part of their regime. In the United States, it's not FDA approved for that. Blah. Right? It's a big taboo even topic. So, but I and there are some cancers that thrive, will grow their own blood supply and thrive with oxygen. So you could potentially make it worse. But most
Mm,
cancers really, really crave sugar. They are
mm,
running on the
yes.
metabolic process of sugar, which is why they do PET scans. That's why that is such a powerful diagnostic. So they have you eat steak and broccoli, no potatoes, no pasta, no carbs for 24 hours. And then they bring you in that next morning and they do an activated version of glucose so that they can visualize it, right? It's got a radioactive dye in it. And so now we can visualize which cells in your body are uptaking the sugar and which ones don't because the cancers love it and it lights up. It literally
Wow.
it literally lights up. So, when you're eating, if you're dealing with anything related to cancer, the first thing is to drop all your sugars. Absolutely drop them. It's no brainer. A
No
lot of
brainer.
yeah, like, stop feeding it. That's literally how they diagnose it, and anybody who says, "Oh, no, sugar in your diet has nothing to do with cancer," it's all genetic, it's all in your head, it's all toxicity, it's all insecticides, it's all foods, it's all parasites, it's all fungus.
Right.
It's it's all whatever that is, and those are all true, by the way, I think, but really, you're feeding it. So whatever it is in the original cause, stop feeding it, and that'll
Well,
change the environment for starters.
I have again. I know I keep saying one more. Normally, I
Yeah,
don't run this log on this, but I love
it's
this.
okay.
This is beautiful. One more for you.
Mhm,
Even though I have a whole bunch more, we could do a series. So I've been hearing about Lyme disease. There
mm,
are some doctors that are using the HBOT that have formulas that I do not know, but they have formulas from where people are getting healed from Lyme disease between 12 to 16 months. Again, on an average, not everyone's different, but there's seeing a lot of that. Do you know much about that?
mhm, mhm. It's really amazing. So we have one of my first experiences with that was clear back in, like, 2000, maybe 12, 13. So we had a health practitioner here in town. She was diagnosed with Lyme's disease. It hit her brain, and that's her living. That's her profession, is her mind, and all of her knowledge base is huge. But she was forced to close her practice, and she closed her business, went on sabbatical, did all different kinds of protocols. And then she finally came back and heard that we had hyperbaric. And after all the other stuff she had done, and maybe that was part of her journey and part of what had helped, maybe it would have taken a lot longer or different results if she hadn't done that, but she still had Lyme and her brain was still not well. So she did 60 hyperbaric oxygen. So, we're talking what, $6,000? Not even that, because a lot of hers were an hour. And so she did 60 over the course of the winter and her brain was 100%. She's like, "It's all back. I got it." And the pressure, the actual pressure crushes infections. It crushes them. So not all infections. So like parasites, tapeworms love hyperbaric. They love oxygen. They use oxygen. They're very complex, large critters. So if you have a tapeworm, pinworms, hookworms, that kind of thing. Sometimes I have veterans that come in and they're like, "Nah, I just want to do hyperbaric. I just want to go in and disappear." And they'll be like, "Okay, my brain feels better, but now my digestion's like something else is off." And I'm like, "That's because we didn't screen, right?" So anyway, they have to do a parasite cleanse and then go in. So, but but really good observation and good comment on Lyme's disease, gangrene, all different types of infections. That's why part of why it's so effective with long COVID, because it's crushing those infections and then stimulating your immune system to step up and clean all that up, and it heals very quickly. It's awesome.
Thank you so much. I know we've gone way over, and I just love the. This is good information for people to know.
Yeah,
Especially Lyme disease is hitting very hard for people I know, and
so many
and
people.
and
So
hyperbaric works if you know what you're doing, because I know
mhm,
there's different settings and
mhm.
there's a regimen. I don't know those, but I've been meeting a lot of people that help them, that will
Well,
help them, that
yeah.
need to help 'em.
Yeah, and one of the things to keep in mind with hyperbaric is that it increases the way that the oxygen works. You need antioxidants. Like it doesn't do any good to do hyperbaric if you don't ever if you're eating at McDonald's. It's just minimal effectiveness. If you don't have the ability to, if you don't put some good greens and purples and blues and put some colors. So I have one guy who is so funny. He's like, "Carol, what do I do about this?" He's like, "I'm an idiot and you have to dumb it down for me." And I said, "Eat colors.
Eat the
Oh.
rainbow.
Eat the rainbow. Eat the colors. If it has a color, great. If it's tan or white, like rice or potatoes or whatever." And then I said, "Skip it."
Sugar.
Yeah. Yeah. All those things. And I said, and his A1s went down by like 4 points in 6 months. And they're like, "Oh, I guess you're not a diabetic. Good for you." He's like, "Don't you even wanna know what I'm doing?" The doc was like, "No, not really, just keep it up. Good for you." Like, "You don't want to know? How do you" he was so mad, he goes, "Carol, I didn't even wanna know." Like, it's not
Yeah,
in his
that's
wheelhouse.
another podcast.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
awesome.
Carol, thank you so much. I
Yeah,
appreciate
Mark.
your time, and I'm excited to get this video out there. And what I can say is, everyone out there in internet land, make sure you share this video. If you have a loved one, whether they struggle with neuropathy, whether they struggle with Lyme disease, whether they struggle with getting more energy, you want to meet up with people that understand. Carol understands. She's worked in this industry for many, many, many years.
Like, close to
Yeah,
40 years now.
yeah, I mean, wow. I mean, don't even look great. And
Thank you.
a
60.
beautiful, it's what I eat, and like, yeah, I live in Montana, but what I'm saying is, everyone out there, make sure you share this video. Sharing is loving, because if you don't struggle with it, but you know someone that does, you can help change one person's life. And that's what
How it
we're here
works.
about with this.
Wha
Yes, to get one at a time. And that's what it takes, because that one multiplies into millions. And if you could maybe leave us with a message, maybe someone that's kind of not sure about the hyperbaric chamber, and they're struggling with pain in their body constantly, and they've been told, you're just going to have to live with it. You're getting older, and just continue to take all these other pills that you're going to need another one to get another one to get another one to, you're probably not even here.
Mhm. I had a client who she had really severe insomnia, and she like 3 weeks without sleeping at a time. She had a large family, very busy life, and this was a huge struggle for her, and she ran not a podcast, she had a blog, right? And she would get people like, "Well, what should I do? What should I do?" And she said, "Do something. Take the next step." Like, do so for the lady that had Lyme disease, right? If she hadn't done the work ahead of time, I don't know how fast. Maybe hyperbaric would have taken a lot longer to work. Everything we do that is wellness oriented, right? Every drink of water that you drink, every extra step you take, every positive thing you put into your mind, every piece of forgiveness and bitterness you can let go of, every happy, good, well thing you bring in takes you that much closer. Do one thing. Do something and take that next step. So yes, we have people who come here and they spend a month or they spend a week and we just hammer them with everything we can with all 12 of our technologies, right? We saturate their whole day as a med spa, and they're transformed. And that's fun to watch, but not everybody can do that, right? So if you can do that, great. Give us a call. We love doing that because who doesn't love to just watch a transformation in a short period of time? People who couldn't touch their toes without chest pain, and then they leave running 3 miles a month later. Those are things that you just look at it and go, "Oh my gosh." But do something. Don't just sit there and wait for somebody else outside of you to heal you. Whatever tool you choose, it might be another person, right? It might be an extra salad this week. Whatever that is, it might be a little extra protein this week, who knows? So, whatever that is, take that step. Do one thing every single day to make yourself a little bit healthier, and eventually, over time, right? You didn't get sick overnight. You're not gonna heal necessarily overnight. So, add in those tools. Whatever tools you have access to, do that. But don't wait. Just do it now.
Thank you so much, Carol. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. It's super fun to visit with you. Thanks for having me.
We kept it calm, I told you, you got to bring the coffee next time, and I'll bring the creamer. Just playing with you.
Do you know what I'm like on coffee? That would be crazy. I don't
I'm
drink
like on coffee, like I have testosterone. That's what I'm not even joking. I'm zooming. Say I like to get up at 6. I'm zooming till about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock tops. 3 o'clock, I'm taking a nap. No joke. But thank you so much. I look forward to having you on the show again and hopefully
Yep,
soon.
sounds good. Thanks, everybody. Take care.